Good evening. This is Attorney Vince Davis. I'm with Cynthia Becker, and the name of this show is The Secret, How to Fight CPS and Win. Good evening, Cynthia. How are you?
I'm good. I'm excited.
How are you? How is it being in studio?
It's so weird.
So we're going to be taking calls this evening, live calls from our audience across the country, and they're going to be sharing their stories with us, asking us questions, and so we're going to try to help as many people as we can that is having, this horror story with CPS. Let's take our first call from, is it Danny from Michigan? Danny, did you have a story to tell or a question to ask?
Hi, Mr. Davis. Thanks for having me. Hi, Cynthia.
Hi.
So, let's kind of a story, but with the questions. So, my daughter and her boyfriend had their kids removed on August 5th. But leading up to that, the social worker had been being really intrusive, coming around when he shouldn't have been, had information he shouldn't have. And ultimately, on the day of the court, he went in, and allegations were that she had chronic homelessness and a history of drug abuse, which was already known because in 2015 she had my second grandson who was born addicted to heroin. And so they, had that time frame and didn't do it. So I adopted him so he could stay in the family. And then she did eventually, get clean. So she's got two boys and a girl. And the oldest boy and the youngest daughter lived with her. And so she got a DV back in June. And I think it was June, May or June. And the social worker just came back in because he's been in this picture for the whole time, probably about just at the end of fall, actually spring. So anyhow, the allegation should have stuck because she got charged in 2015 she pled guilty to having my grandson who has NAS. And then the chronic homelessness, COVID, it's got everybody out there, but she wasn't homeless. She was actually in a home. And the social worker ended up lying in court and said that she refused to see him that day, which wasn't the case because she did see him 2 days prior to that because I have notes that he wrote down and he didn't know that she had accidentally dialed me. So I'm listening to their conversation. And he asked her to get a power of attorney on my adopted son so she could get medical treatment for him. And if I had a problem with that, to address him. And that wasn't necessary. And so there was a couple other things that he wanted, but it's his handwritten notes. So then he then turned around and went to court after he talked to her that morning. He had her meet him on 8/5. And basically just told her that he was having unhealthy feelings towards her and her children, and that he wanted her to go get a TPO. And she said, not necessary because there's a no contact order. And he said, basically, for a fact, I know he was with you on this day. He wasn't, because it was having to do with dropping the child off, and the children were with me that day. He said that he was perfectly was in the house because Kaylee told him that he was living there, and that this would be the boyfriend that had the domestic violence, because she said he was downstairs doing laundry.
Well, hold on a second, Danny. Yeah. Hold on a second. I kind of got the picture, of the, past drug use, the domestic violence, that type of stuff. What was the question you had to ask me?
Well, okay, so when we did our show the other day with Cynthia, she was supposed to have court yesterday because she's taking it to trial because she's disputing all that because they took her children and put my granddaughter with the alleged father because they're not identifying him as the father because they want the affidavit that he signed or a paternity test, but yet they placed him with his mother. And then her son was placed with his biological father,
Danny.
who in 2000,
Danny, can I ask the question for you to Vince?
Yeah.
Sure. Okay. So Vince, this is the grandmother, and she has custody of one of the grandkids.
Mm-hmm.
When they removed the other two, they wouldn't place them with her to be with the siblings. They separated them.
Okay.
That's one issue.
All right.
Yeah.
So, Danny, first let me say this. I'm licensed here in California. So I'm going to answer the question as if you were in California, although I see
Okay.
you're in another state. If you were in California, you'd have significant rights to try to get those other two grandchildren
Right.
placed with you. And one of the things that you would want to do in California is you would want to file a de facto motion and what's called a 388 motion. In other words, to have the children placed with you because you're the grandmother and you have siblings. Now,
Right.
I've seen your story many times here in California. And what you need to do is you need to find a lawyer there in your state who you can speak to who's experienced in CPS cases so that you can file the appropriate motions and paperwork to go into court and get these children. Now, I tell this to
Right.
people all the time, and I want you to think about this. If you don't get a lawyer and go to court, you will be stuck with the social worker's decision. And the decision in this case is to separate these grandkids. So you need to go and affirmatively walk into court with a lawyer, make the right motions, and get these kids placed with you. That's
Right.
it.
Well,
It's very simple.
Well, there's a little snag in that because he assumed that I let my adopted son go get unsupervised visit with his biological mother and the father. He called and reported the allegations against me that I had him unsupervised and that I was on drugs.
Okay. Danny, but that doesn't matter.
the-
That's not a snag. A good
No.
lawyer will resolve that, bring the right
Okay.
evidence to the judge to show the judge that these are false allegations made by the social worker against you so that you can get your grandchildren. There's no
Yeah.
snag. It's a very simple thing. Get a lawyer who knows what they're doing and make the right motions and go into court so that you can get these children back. Hey, Danny, I
Right.
want to thank you for calling. I want to thank you for listening. My engineer is telling me we have to take our first commercial break of the evening. This is The Secret, How to Fight Child Protective Services and Win.